Welcome to the Heartland Journal's Tennessee podcast with your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of heartlandjournal.com.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome back. I'm Steve Abramowitz, and this is the Heartland Journal podcast. Please hit that subscribe button and pass it around. Thanks for doing it. On this show, we are focusing on our nation today with always an interesting person making a positive change in our community and lovers of truth. Today, we are talking with special guest Charles Sauer. Charles Sauer began developing his expertise in finance and tax by working for the chairman of the Finance Committee. In 2010, he founded the Market Institute and serves as president to date. Sauer authored the book Profit Motive: What Drives the Things We Do, and is a frequent voice appearing in outlets like the Washington Examiner, Forbes, Investors Business Daily, and many more. Charles has been named to Washingtonian Magazine's list of the most influential people shaping policy in Washington. This prestigious recognition reflects Charles's tireless advocacy for innovation, property rights, and free market principles. Whether he's engaging with lawmakers on Capitol Hill, writing in national publications, or working behind the scenes to advance sound economic policy, Charles continues to be a leading voice for limited government and individual liberty. The Market Institute is a 501c4 nonprofit organization that specializes in taking complex issues and simplifying them. This increases the audience, amplifies the argument, and creates effective public policy education. The Market Institute breaks the argument down differently than other nonprofits. They break issues down into understandable chunks and make the issues relatable. They work hard to figure out the right message, the best way to communicate the message, and the right people to educate by spending years developing a network, a trusted reputation, and the knowledge they need to effectively communicate detailed educational messages. Most importantly, they only work on issues they believe in, can have fun working on, and feel they can make a difference. Let's meet Charles of the Market Institute, economist, columnist, and public policy influencer, Charles Sauer, right now. Hello, Charles. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. You're based in D.C., right?
Yeah, I'm actually just outside of D.C. in Alexandria, Virginia, but, we could throw a stone and it could roll into D.C. from here.
Interesting times in Virginia. Youngkin put y'all on the map a couple years ago, flipping school boards and winning the governorship, and now his replacement is big fight. The attorney general wants to maybe see our children dead, and the lieutenant governor wants to be governor, and she has a very interesting character. She's run. Any opinions on the upcoming election in Virginia?
I don't know, like anybody in an election state, I just want the election to be over so these ads can go away. But I can tell you one of the most interesting pieces of this election to me is Youngkin won because the Democrats were trying to villainize parents. They were being escorted out of school board meetings, and they were being discussed as terrorists. And so that is realistically one of the major fights in this election, is trying to reestablish that. And I'm not sure that it's happening. I think that a lot of parents have already forgotten. And I think in part that has to do with a lot of the way that Northern Virginia thinks of President Trump, and a lot of what Trump has been doing around the country. So I think that we can see that politics is kind of a now thing. And so everybody's forgotten about being marched out of the school board meetings and called terrorists. And it doesn't matter whether you agreed, and this is where Youngkin won. It doesn't matter whether you agreed with the issues that these parents were discussing and debating or not. As soon as the parents were pulled out of having any say on what was going on in the school system without their kids, everybody rose up and elected Youngkin. And so it's going to be an interesting election. As you said, we have Jay Jones, who has the text messages that were outed for killing, but that poll for killing the kids or killing the member himself. But the polling in that race is actually still even. And so, again, I think that this is a reaction to Trump. I can tell you Jay Jones isn't this great politician who's able to just wipe this away. And I think that this is, if this happens, if Jay Jones wins the election, then I think that the Republicans and Trump in particular need to take stock of what they're doing, or it's going to be a landslide when we have the next election.
Okay. So living in Virginia, working in DC, has Trump and his National Guard surge cleaned up the city like he's doing in Memphis with actual arrests and cleaning it up as, as advertised, not just, fake TV, nice places that you can still go out to eat, have better patrolling? And is he cleaning up the neighborhoods, or is it a mirage?
I mean, it's a little bit of both, right? But what's not a mirage is that this is a federal takeover of these cities and moving into one of our 50 state laboratories. So, in part, DC is the outlier to that, right? So DC is the federal government. So this isn't actually like a federal takeover of Washington, DC, because Washington, DC is a federal place. And so in DC, I can tell you that, like, yeah, there's you can see National Guard in the places that were already pretty safe. You can drive out into the areas of DC that aren't safe and you don't really see them. And so I personally think that that's a mirage, but at the same time, there was a lot of crime in DC. There's always been a lot of crime in DC. And the way that the people in DC voted have kind of asked for that. So I don't necessarily think that that's a president's job to do that. So when we move out across the country and we see where National Guard are being deployed, yes, there's problems in those places, but those should be the issues of the people that live there to step up. So I think in the long run, I think that this not only hurts Trump, but I think it hurts Republicans because if the incentives in a place like California changed and didn't want crime and therefore wanted Republicans, you have this long run change where Republicans are finally seen as wanting to end crime and therefore elected into office and therefore help solve the crime issues and then have this demand instead of coming in and overriding states' rights. And so I think that in ways that isn't a mirage because the crime can be solved by putting troops in a place. I don't think it changes a place at all. And so as soon as the troops are gone, then I think the crime will come back and there will be more pushback against Republicans. So I think it sets it back for a longer period of time.
Interesting unintended consequences. He certainly seemed to have grabbed back the law and order for Republicans at the moment after what we went through with prison reform with Governor Lee here in Tennessee, Republican as well, and all the rest. And of course, the Summer of Love and the BLM riots and George Floyd and all this other kind of thing. So it's sad that it's a temporary placebo or Band-Aid, let's just say. But before we dig into you, tell us about your work with who you work with at Market Institute, Horace Cooper and past president of Campaign for Liberty, Norm Singleton.
Yeah, so I mean, if you follow Washington, D.C., these are kind of a who's who group of band of brothers we've put together. Norm Singleton is who I'm going to focus on because he's really amazing, not just Campaign for Liberty, but he was Ron Paul's legislative director for basically Ron Paul's whole stint on Capitol Hill. And one of the things that you get from doing that isn't just an understanding of what policies should be passed or what policies should be enacted, but the bones and how this stuff is constructed, because there's not a lot of new ideas that pop up on Capitol Hill, but an idea will be popular for a while and then it will die. And then another idea will be popular for a while and then it'll die. And then there will be a whole bill that will be popular and then it'll go away and people forget about it. And so one of the key things in Washington, D.C. is understanding kind of the history of these policy ideas and the bills, what happened to them. So you can help explain it to members that probably weren't around when this bill was first discussed or the policy idea, and why it might have met a fate of just being filed away in the circular filing cabinet at some point in its life. And so Norm provides that to us. He has the history, that historical knowledge of what's going on Capitol Hill and how things progressed and died and what the libertarian fights were at the time and what worked and what didn't. And so he's really somebody that we rely on heavily. He does a lot of our writing for us. And I don't know, it's fun to have a Norm on with us because every once in a while these gray issues pop up, and it's just like, I don't know. I know where my heart tells me to go, but I'm not sure. And I can call Norm up, and Norm knows why my heart feels that way. And then he also will help explain the historical nature of something, and then honestly some of the long-term academic thoughts on issues, which I think is really important and something that helps out. And Horace Cooper is one of those masterminds of Washington, D.C., who really knows how the city works and has long been influential and helping get ideas furthered and moved into the public debate, which is one of the things that we focus on as a think tank. So I don't know. We have a pretty good team. For a small think tank, we punch way above our weight, and we have a lot of fun. It's fun being able to sit around at a table with the big guys, and they're asking us how we're so effective in messaging issues.
Yeah, that's what I like most about you guys is that you put some fun into it, because sometimes DC cannot be so fun with this stinky swamp and all the rest. So John Tamny is political economy editor at Forbes and editor of realclearmarkets.com. I read that. Very good source of information. Tell us about John.
Yeah. So if you've talked to Tamny for more than a minute, it's kind of like talking to like a Bears football fan, right? Like if you talk to a Bears football fan, they're not just going to talk about this team. They're going to run all the way back to the Bears. And when you're talking to Tamny about politics, he doesn't just start talking about today. He's going to weave that into this discussion of the past. But one of the most amazing things of Tamny is the guy can write one of the best articles you've ever written or ever read in minutes, because his brain is just going so fast. And if you watch Real Clear Markets, where he's the editor of, you can see kind of how much he's taking in, how much he's reading, how much he's writing, and actually kind of follow this full political market narrative really well. And it's just a testament to how much work he's putting in. And he also just started his own think tank. He still works with us, but started his own think tank, the Parkview Institute, and it's doing really well. They're working on a few issues in particular. And I don't know, he's Washington, D.C., and I think every business is like this, but when you walk into a big room of 200, 300 people, there's really only those 10 to 15 people that are actually active and know what they're talking about. Tamny's one of those guys in almost every room in Washington, D.C., and so that's one of the reasons we like bringing these people together that actually have a lot of information and a lot of knowledge, and they're happy to put that out. When I talk to John about what we're doing at the Market Institute, he usually laughs and he's like, isn't it amazing that we get paid to do this? This is what we would be doing for free if people weren't paying us. And I go home and tell my wife and kids the same thing, and we just have fun. We want a smaller government. We want people to be able to have the right to start their own business and be successful. And I would be saying this at dinner parties if we weren't the Market Institute, but we get paid to go out and, try to get the government out of the way and try to let people take individual responsibility and be successful. And that's realistically what we're all about. And I love what we do.
Yeah. And you live in the most lucrative zip code in the country, but not all of them are as good at this as you are, unfortunately. So they get paid, maybe overpaid. So you just wrote for Real Clear Markets about the FTC and new Commissioner Carr getting crossways with Amazon, one of America's biggest companies. How do you feel about Carr? We just heard his name nationally with the Jimmy Kimmel fight. Jimmy seems to have won temporarily, being back on air last week, actually, with a drag queen reading to kids, so not funny. And Amazon owns MGM now, so getting bigger every day, including data centers and insatiable demand for land and water. What did they get crossways about, and how's it going?
Well, I'm not a fan of Carr, but I am trying to be a fan of Carr. I'm things like the Jimmy Kimmel episode and what happened with Amazon are two reasons I'm not a fan of Carr. And we've attempted to work on legislation that would have actually, I don't know if we go back, if it would have made what he did a crime, because he really came out after actions were taken, but came out with government threats. And Rand Paul has a bill that says that the government shouldn't be able to go into outside companies and force them to censor anything. And so I'm not sure that this would apply in this instance, but in the statements afterwards, it was implied that he would do something afterwards that was there. Look, I think that this is best if we go back and start with Lina Khan and the Biden administration. Lina Khan is a very smart woman. She was the youngest head of the FTC. But she rose to notoriety and fame because she wrote this paper in college about how she was going to take on big tech and take down these monopolies, and big is bad was Lina Khan's theory. And if we look at the left, that is kind of what they've been in the history of their party. And in fact, one of the things that Republicans in general, bork, who Republicans use the term borked as an actual, verb or adjective that explain what happens when government stops somebody from getting an office. He was more about the consumer welfare standard and putting judging not based on size, but on if something helped or hurt the consumers. And so Lina Khan was against this. She wanted to go in the opposite direction than just using consumers. She wanted to use consumers and the environment and unions and everything else except for just the way markets work. So that was awful under Lina Khan. There were no mergers. She was going after these big companies. She was working with Europe to go after big companies. We fast forward to Trump, and President Trump comes in. He's a Republican, right? He's a conservative. We're thinking that we might have a limited government option where we stop going after businesses. We stop working with Europe to harm American businesses. And instead, we're promoting this growth. And Brendan Carr made statements that were not in that direction during his confirmation. And now we've seen through his actions that he is kind of a Republican version of a Lina Khan 2.0. And so it's not what I want, but I am hoping that we're going to come around here. There have been many more mergers that have gone through. We are starting to see businesses pick up in that area, and mergers are important because it means that investors don't only invest at the top, but that there's an out when they invest in the bottom. So if investors invest in a small company and it becomes big, another big company can bid for them. So the merger side, he's doing really well. What we see on this Amazon FTC thing, and by the way, the basic idea of the case was that the idea was that it took too many clicks for people to unsubscribe from Amazon. I believe at the time the case was brought, which was during, I believe, the Biden administration. It might have been during Trump 1, but it was 6 clicks to unsubscribe from Amazon. They did studies at fewer clicks, and people complained, and then more clicks and people complained, and 6 clicks and to fully unsubscribe. And that means like getting into the unsubscribe area and then a couple of confirmations from there. While like the New York Times was writing about it, I think it was something like 14 clicks to unsubscribe from them. I can tell you that I still have 2 wives on healthcare.gov because the government won't let me actually remove not another wife. I just incorrectly entered my only wife and had to do another one, and I can't even remove her from the website. So to me, 6 clicks seemed reasonable. And Amazon thinks it's reasonable. The government didn't. And eventually Amazon just had to give up to the bully because otherwise they were going to be dragged through a long-term case that would have dragged everything out into the market. And so they just pay off the government bully and move on. And so I don't think that that's where we want to go And I don't think it's exciting, but I've said a lot. I apologize.
That's okay.
But
No, it's wonky
where do
stuff,
we want
and
to go?
that's the show is going to be like that. So Amazon, now they want to be your local pharmacy. Aside from huge privacy rights issues that I have, you wrote, save prescription costs, let primary care MDs dispense. They did this with auto parts, books. They didn't have the copyrights for Amazon, that is, closed the local mom and pop shops and put them out of business. And of course, all the counterfeit products from Eastern Europe and China, huge source of money for gangs and cartels. Some people may remember Ross William Ulbricht and Silk Road, who went away for exactly this, online drug sales to lower prices. What's your opinion on letting Amazon into the game?
Well, let's move Silk Road off of this for a second. But I don't really care about Amazon coming into the game. If they're a company, they make a decision. What I want is the fact, I just like pointing out that like Mark Cuban has cost plus drugs, right? So Mark Cuban has cost plus drugs. And what he's done through that is he buys directly from the pharmaceutical companies. He skips all the middlemen and he then provides it to the patient. And he takes the price that he paid the pharmaceutical company and he pluses it up his profit amount and then sells it. And this is at a very small percentage of what CVS is claiming these drugs cost, right? CVS, Walgreens, for that matter, even Walmart and Target and all of these larger pharmacies. And I can tell you that Mark Cuban isn't the lowest prices. I even pay a lower price with my doctor, Dr. Josh Umber, who runs Atlas MD. He's a direct primary care doctor. He's helped start about 80% of the DPCs around the country. And he's a doctor that prescribes and dispenses. So this is in part what I'm discussing there. But the idea is that he buys directly from the pharmaceutical companies. And then I pay Josh a monthly membership fee as a direct primary care doctor. And so instead of marking up the drugs, he just moves them through to me at his cost. And so I get, my prescriptions are pennies on the dollar for what it costs from my insurance company. And that's because we've cut out the third party people that are in the middle, the pharmacy benefit managers, which are now actually owned by some of the pharmacies. And the pharmacy benefit managers negotiate prices from these manufacturers. And then somehow they negotiate usually means lower prices. But in this case, they force the pharmaceutical companies to jack up the price and then they negotiate them to a lower price. So it's a discount off of a made up price. And then they sell them to the pharmacies at a discount. And the pharmacies are like, great, we'll pass it on at this discount. And it's just a big money game in the middle. And it all stems from the idea that patients aren't the payers in our current healthcare system. So in my case with Josh, I'm actually paying him because I like him as a doctor. But overall in healthcare, I still have insurance. So I could go to the pharmacy and I have no say of how this negotiation is going. But fortunately, I chose Josh so I can get even cheaper medications through him. If you're an employee, your boss has chosen your insurance plan. The insurance plan figures out what hospitals and doctors are in network, what pharmaceuticals are going to be on your plan. And there's articles over the internet we can discuss about how prices work in this market. But the pharmaceutical companies at the end of the day aren't actually making a lot of money. So they're happy to be able to go around this confusing market and just go directly to patients. But we don't currently have a healthcare market that pushes it. So yes, I support direct to patient drugs. And it's to skip the middlemen. In most markets, middlemen are good. In healthcare, since the patients aren't the payers, it actually ends up being bad.
Yeah, and it does away with that whole argument that the high cost of R&D is needed, and so the prices are high that way. When we actually know it's actually the middle management that's getting paid, and not the savings to the consumer, which is always good. So, and I get why North American pharmaceutical market accounts for about 42% of global share. The pharmaceutical market in the U.S. is the largest in North America. Of course, we have more people than Canada. and the global pharmaceutical market size is about 1.77 trillion this year, predicted to exceed 3 trillion by 2034. That's a 6% plus compound annual growth rate. So Mark Cuban's no dummy. He knows what he's trying to get into. The rising demand for vaccines, drugs, and personalized medicines is expected to boost the growth of the pharmaceutical market. The growing prevalence of chronic disease is fostering the demand for innovative drugs, contributing to market growth. With Rite Aid going bankrupt, do you foresee Amazon being the winner here too?
I mean, I see Amazon as being able to come in. Like, I think that Mark Cuban has a lead in this, and Amazon, when they come in, and Amazon's been in this healthcare discussion now for more than a decade. I think it was, oh man, it would have been about 12 years ago. I think they had a little group meeting of the best free market doctors that even I had identified from around the country. And it's always fun to know that healthcare is my specialty. I had kind of assembled this large group of free market doctors that were changing the way that healthcare worked, and that some group from Amazon had identified these same doctors in likely a shorter period of time and pulled them all into a meeting in Texas to figure out what they should do and how they could help solve these high healthcare problems. And the fact is that when investors or when entrepreneurs, if you want to be an entrepreneur someplace, look for a market that you can save people 50% or more in something. And healthcare is that industry. And so healthcare is ripe for entrepreneurs to come in and really help solve the problem. The issue is when we get into entrenched government bureaucracies and cronyism, that people run into it and then they end up kind of blanching and moving away from the issue altogether, because it is hard. You have to fight the hospitals. You have to fight the insurers. And these people have offices, not just in Washington, D.C., but, right next to Capitol Hill. They're spending every single day up there talking to these members and working on them to make sure they're on their side. But yeah, if Rite Aid goes out of business, does that create even more of a hole for somebody to fill? Yeah. Is Amazon one of those people? Yes. Mark Cuban's one of those people. I think Josh Umber and the whole direct primary care movement is one of those people. I think as healthcare costs keep going up faster than the inflation rate, I think that we have more demand for the Josh Umbers of the world that are doing this thing. And we also have Keith Smith, who he runs a surgery center in Oklahoma and lists his prices. He charges a sixth to a tenth of what the hospital down the street charges. And we see more demand for the Keith Smiths of the world. And when we see more demand for those people, then other entrepreneurs come in and we have that second and third wave. And I don't know if you've ever watched the video. It's called Shirtless Guy Dancing. If you go Shirtless Guy Dancing leadership video, there's a TED Talk on it. And if you're really a nerd, this last weekend, I think that there was, I think it was the Browns fans. It might have been Ohio State, but they were shirtless, waving their shirts around, and it follows this same growth trend where there was one dude who was up in the stands waving his shirt, and then there was a second guy and he was like, hey, wave your shirt. And then if you spread it out over a couple of minutes, all of a sudden the stands were filled with shirtless people waving their shirts over their head. That's the way movements work. And so right now we have Keith Smith and we have the first followers. I think we're going to see more. Right now we have Josh Umber and more than first followers. We're kind of into the second stage there. So I think we're seeing this big surge in entrepreneurs. And I think Rite Aid was a victim of itself, a victim of the old market, and wasn't able to adapt to this new market. And I think CVS and Walgreens will likely be next.
Okay. And you're not kidding, by the way. I mean, the premier lobbying group for Big Pharma, the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, spent over $20.6 million on lobbying the federal government in the first half of this year, including more than $7.6 million in the second quarter alone. According to CNBC, interest groups spent a record $4.2 billion lobbying federal lawmakers in 2023, led by the pharmaceutical and health products industries. Says a new report by Open Secrets. Since 2020, The pharmaceutical industry has consistently spent significant amounts on lobbying, with reports indicating nearly $390 million in 2021 alone. In the first half of 25, they spent $226.8 million, showing a trend of increasing expenditures over the years. Over the past 20 years, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, and Bristol Myers Squibb spent more than $351 million on lobbying and $34 million on campaign contributions. Last year, these companies spent nearly 200, they sent nearly 200 lobbyists to Congress. Are we the United States of pharma now?
I don't think so. And it would be interesting to see that breakdown, because I can tell you, because I have really close knowledge of one of the issues that pharma is working on. A lot of that money is to fight against Google. And I would say that what Google is doing is working against kind of America. So one of pharma's largest fights are patents. The only right actually in the Constitution, in the original Constitution's Article 1, Section 8, and that's a right to a patent. Okay? Now, what do patents give us? Before we had patents, over in Europe, the king would give the writ of ownership to an idea to his cronies, right? The court. And so if you developed something, it wasn't yours, it would be given to somebody else. When our founders were debating the Constitution, they wanted to change this. And it's one of the things that has set America apart from the rest of the world and let us be this innovative country that we are today. Now, the fact is that patents get in the way of some of these large tech companies, because they're trying to sell ads, they're trying to gather data, and to do that, they use new tech. Well, new tech comes with patents if they don't develop themselves. And therefore, we have this problem where patents are expensive for them. It's kind of like a home builder complaining that lumber's too expensive, but it's been a working issue on Capitol Hill. And so I think when we talk about lobbying numbers, we don't see it quite the right way unless you look into it and understand what they're doing. So my assumption is that the largest portion of those billions of dollars that you went through and talked about were defending the Constitution and why America is the country we are today. Because if you take out patents, then the billions of dollars that it takes to bring a new molecule to market isn't going to happen. It takes $2 billion of investment. If you don't have a patent to defend it once you get done, why would a company ever invest that? Now, we have pretty good drugs now. Great. But if we move out 20 years when we don't have patents, then we likely don't have these great new drugs, right? So if you ended the patents today, there's probably the current drugs have 4 years of patents. They are working on trials on some, so those would come through. We would probably have about 15 years of runway of having new drugs. But after that, my kids wouldn't be able to have the new molecules that would be available if we did these things and stopped having patents today. So I don't know what they're all lobbying on, but I can tell you that I know, because I'm in this patent fight of the large corporations that have already been innovative and are trying to pull the ladder up behind them. I can tell you that pharma's in that fight, and I can tell you it's one of the most important ones in the country. It's also just so nerdy that it's hard for people to talk about. But it's cool when you look into the world of patents, because the only lecture that Abraham Lincoln did was actually on the value of patents. He said that they're the rocket fuel for the economy. If you look at the first Senate when they met, so the House was on the bottom floor, the Senate only took half of the building. So the room next to them was the machine room that had all of the best inventions of the day. It is this exciting cornerstone of democracy. And so, if you want to say that is the United States of pharma because they're fighting for the Constitution, then I'll agree with you. Other than that, I don't know. I would like to look into those numbers further.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is Calvin Coolidge that said the business of America is business. So I get it. But the top 5 most fined pharmaceutical companies in the world, which fines amounting to over $10 billion combined since 2010, the pharmaceutical industry has incurred $82.8 billion in penalties during over 500 instances of recorded violations due to drug and medical device safety non-observance. Biggest, of course, is GlaxoSmithKline back in 2012. Illegal promotion of drugs, $3 billion fine, largest fraud fine ever. Is RFK Jr. going to fix this quality control issue, or probably not? Too big to bust?
Probably not. Too technical to bust. He's I mean, look, here's the problem. I think he came in running trying to support more science, and at every corner they've come out, they've been unscientific. So the first report they came out with on Maha from RFK had the bogus AI hallucinations in it. They scrubbed that, and now we have the Tylenol announcement, which the writers of all of the papers that they quoted came and changed the site, the summaries, and explained that they told the administration that their studies didn't show what that was that they were claiming. And so I think that we've lost credibility in that movement pretty quick. I think RFK came in and with some good ideas and some good statements when he said look, I'm not the scientist. Don't trust me. We're going to rely on good science over here. I think people were yearning for that after coming out of the Biden administration, and for that matter, the Trump 1 reaction to COVID. I think that there was a lot that we wanted good science. And I think everything we've seen out of RFK so far has been bad science. I mean, bad science to the nth degree. When you have hallucinations in your reports, I think that is that's something that anybody should have caught. And so I think you lose trust there. But the Tylenol piece is really frustrating for those of us who like actually talking about science correctly.
I guess it was inevitable that we'll get our books, our running shoes, our groceries, and now vaccines and pills from Amazon. I mean, they kind of have the market on everything. Do you find Republican lawmakers on Capitol Hill more receptive to big tech and big pharma cohesion, or the Democrats?
No, but look, this is it's not Amazon, and you don't know where you're going to get these things from, because if I take you back, it's like if we fast forward this. You just said Amazon. Let's clip it now and let's fast forward 20 years. And that's going to sound funny because there's going to be, bumbashack.com or something. That's the new thing that we're working on, because that's the way economies work, right? When I first started on Capitol Hill, we were fighting about Walmart and how that they were poorly treating their labor. And even though, they were the ones paying, higher than minimum wage wherever they were, because they needed these workers. But the fact is I want to, there's a policy on Capitol Hill that pays hospitals more than independent physicians for the same service. And that is like paying Walmart more for the same service than you would, Joe's boutique shop downtown. Joe's boutique shop is always going to have to be more expensive because they can't buy as much stuff as Walmart can to get the lower prices. But for some reason, government has decided to pay them more. So in healthcare, we see hospitals taking over these markets. In Amazon's case, they're not government. They should be more efficient. And so I do want to buy, if I can buy a cheaper drug from them, or if I can buy a cheaper vaccine that would work for me, should be cheaper and better to buy it from the bigger place. But I don't think that Amazon's going to take over something, because as soon as you say that, somebody else is going to do it. In fact, Walmart's problem is that they own so much real estate. It's hard, normal brick and mortar real estate. It's hard for them to do what Amazon is doing, because Amazon owns the same amount of real estate. They just treat it differently. So, but I think Walmart is trying to change what they're doing to be that way. So yes, we're going to do it. Amazon will do that. But I don't think that we should worry about Amazon doing it today because we don't know who's going to do it tomorrow. What we do know is that when somebody does it tomorrow, the way Amazon did it better than Walmart, and the way that Walmart did it better than Safeway, and the way that all of these companies are doing it better than the other ones, there'll be something better that replaces it and competes with them. And that fact means that Amazon's competing every day for our business. And I think that that is kind of the key to economics. And
along those lines, Microsoft saw the margins that IBM had and decided to cut them out. And look at what happened. He swamped them in terms of market cap over a long period of time. And IBM is, the big company, but not like they were at the time, dominating. So along those lines, it's complicated to talk big tech and big pharma all in the same universe, but these are the two big things in America, and you happen to cover both of them. So we'll try. But the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986 was signed into law by the president at that time, Ronald Reagan, as part of a larger health bill on November 14th, 1986. We're coming up on, 40 years of this? No. Yeah, long time. NCVIA's purpose was to eliminate the potential financial liability of vaccine manufacturers due to vaccine injury claims, to ensure a stable market supply of vaccines, and to provide cost-effective arbitration for vaccine injury claims. So with all the revelations of fraud at Pfizer, and I told you about GlaxoSmithKline, they may be gone. The drugs will still be coming out. That's just science. Moderna, throw them in there. They're a newcomer. So with subsequent not safe and not effective injuries to pregnant women and children, do you see an appetite in DC to repeal that and make the big pharma companies pay for injuries at long last, like Walmart would have to do if somebody slipped on a banana in the grocery section, or if Amazon, sent you some counterfeit product? They are liable for this, but pharma has a waiver. Would that, do you see an appetite for waiving that or repealing that?
No, but that's a weird way of talking about it, because to say that, you pull one piece and compare it to the other, and you miss this middle part of what sets it different than those. It's just a false frame on what it is. They have to pass the FDA. They have to do these trials. There's a lot of middle things that they have to cover that, like, Walmart doesn't have to do, right? So no, I don't see an appetite. I've never even heard it really discussed up here. But at the same time, like, that's not really the way the market works. They have to do the trials and get the FDA approval. And so maybe if you're talking about the government should be on the hook, then maybe that's the case. But once you pass all of the hurdles and what they're doing, then I don't see that would be the case. Now, fraud and everything else you mentioned pulls all of that off the hook, right? So the other pieces to that, if they are lying about something or lying about a test, then you've opened up something where they aren't safe from. But if they go through the process as normal, then it's there. So I think it's important, and this is the same thing when we talk about science. Like, I hit on the Tylenol thing, but like the studies that were quoted from the government were not causal, right? They were they were just like, they didn't study that causation. It was about correlation. But as soon as you added the fact of like DNA or families into the studies, then the causation the correlation completely and totally dropped away. Now, the authors hadn't studied it with that, and they told the administration that this was the case. So it's important to talk about, when we're talking about science or we're talking about these scientific things, to kind of include the whole process, because otherwise people don't get the full picture of what's going on. And it's really easy in this populist day and age to choose the bad policy to go after something. It's easy to say that we can solve all this just by killing the bogeyman, because pharma we don't know pharma, right? Pharma is scary. Amazon's scary because they don't have a corner store. But that isn't the way that we should truly discuss these people, because they are innovative. They are the ones coming out with new molecules or new services. 2-day shipping is amazing. I got something in 1 day yesterday. I'm taking I take a pharmaceutical that's pretty old, and so it's really cheap, but it solves multiple things for me. It's a great thing that we have it. It's a great thing that it was invented then, and I want to see what's invented in the future. So I think it's important when we have the innovative people in our country to support them and look for the next innovative company.
Okay.
If you want to start a pharmaceutical company that is better, I'll work with you and we can try to figure that out. There's enough capital out there in the world that we can do that.
Okay. So other entrepreneurs, Elon and Sam Altman's Palantir, seem very cozy to Republicans like Trump. What policies do you see the big tech guys advocating right now that will be big when they get back to work after this, what some are expecting to be the longest shutdown in history? But they will come back. What do you see as their top priorities for the new Congress?
Yeah, I mean, I think that energy is going to be one of the big ones. So I do think they're still going to be talking about healthcare. I think healthcare is a big one. I mean, we see the shutdown is over healthcare, but there's so many issues out there and so many things that can be done to help fix the market. But on the tech side, I really think that as we see AI growing, the biggest thing that they need currently is power and energy. And maybe that goes away in future generations. But one of the things that we're behind China on is energy production. And that's, again, because we have so many regulations here that are stopping more coal plants, more nuclear plants, more wind, more solar. And it's just hard to get these things implemented and started. So I think that members of Congress are starting to hear that they need to do things now. Unfortunately, there's some people in the administration that really know these industries, David Sachs being one of them. And so I think that one of the next issues is going to be healthcare, but Trump is moving so fast in this term that it's really hard to know what he's going to focus on next. But I think on Capitol Hill, energy is going to be one of the big ones.
Okay, great. Let's touch on that for a second. So prices are down from Biden era at the pump, which helps transportation costs, moving things to market, and everyday Americans obviously drive to and from work. But spending is still high, approaching $40 trillion of debt, and that is the cause of inflation. Do you think by next November, midterm elections, the old pocketbook issues will help Democrats, or do populists still understand that Democrat policies of spending and high taxes, like Mamdani wants in New York City, are losers at the polls?
I think it's going to be a Democrat rout. I think that right now, not only do we have
routing of Democrats, or Democrats will win a majority.
Democrats are going to rout Republicans in likely a historic blowout.
That's usually what happens with the party out of power, but you're saying it's going to be even a red wave.
I'm saying it's going to be bad because of the pocketbook issues. There has been a populist support for tariffs, and people see that, but they're like, it's unfair, and we need to bring these jobs that nobody's asked for years back that are actually hard to create because of these regulations on pollution, and the prices that they have to pay are unsustainable at American rates. But if they do come back, then the prices all increase, and they're coming. And so we are starting to see the high prices. I think we're starting to see the high prices at the pump. I don't know. I looked down yesterday and I swear it was higher than I paid under the Biden administration. I'm not checking it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Even those prices are going up, and that's something that Trump focused on, though. I don't know if they're higher yet, but they're got to be getting there in the realm of it. But the fact is that prices all across the economy are increasing. And just like Biden didn't mention it and tried to run away with it, anybody who mentions it under the Trump administration is yelled at, maybe publicly flogged, chased out of the circles. But these are real issues that people are actually seeing, and it's harming people. And in our area with the government shutdown, they're going to get back pay, right? But there's a lot of people that live month to month, and they are trying to control their spending because of that. And so it's even slowing down our economy in Northern Virginia, which will likely increase costs again. And so we end up seeing this spiral as a problem. So I think that the pocketbook issues are going to drive the election. I think the states' rights issues are going to drive the election. It doesn't, and again, it isn't based on the policies that the states' rights are being abused on. It's not the policies that the tariffs are being levied on. It's just the fact that prices are increasing at an uncontrollable rate. And as we started, this is a good way to circle around to it. This is what we're seeing in the Virginia elections. Youngkin won because the Democrats were running over parent rights in the schools, but now everybody seems to have forgotten about that and is voting on how Trump is running over states' rights and the current state of the economy. So I think that that's going to play out in the midterms heavily.
If you're right, and it sounds that's a very good case, and Dems do take power, will they go wild with all their plans for spending on illegals? Portland, for example, spends more now on healthcare for illegals than their police department, 2-1. And Census 2030, which I've been talking about for 5 years, packing with non-citizens so America will pay the price. Or can Trump clean it up before next November?
No, they will try. They will try to do whatever it is that they want to do. But this is why I personally like divided government. I want a different president than I at least want one chamber of Congress that isn't the same as the president's party. And because that means that we can slow everything down and have a bigger debate. Because let's say both chambers are Democrat. They can't get it through the president. The president can't do anything by himself, although he is doing a lot of stuff by himself. And so we just have a slower progression, and a better debate is where I support everything being.
Gridlock is good. Well, Charles, excuse me, thank you for coming on here, for your time. There's so many topics, but I think we hit a few. Tell our listeners where they can find out more and follow you on social media.
Well, our main website is marketinstitute.org. We also have uspolicy.org, which is where we put all of our writings and try to pull some of our favorite ones from around the market. And then we're on Twitter and YouTube under US Policy too. You want to laugh, watch our US Policy YouTube videos.
That's laughing in politics. Usually it's crying, but that's good. Thank you again for coming on with us. Hang on, folks. I will be right back.
If country ain't country, then this ain't gonna work. Oh, there ain't no gold in this new Nashville dirt.
Thanks for coming back. Please subscribe to heartlandjournal.com. Email address is all we ask, and never miss a new show. It's free. Now, the Heartland Journal News. The Hidden Cost of Tech Giants in the Mid-South by Steve. The arrival of major tech investments in the Memphis area has sparked both optimism and alarm. Elon Musk's xAI is constructing a massive supercomputer facility in Memphis dubbed Colossus, which promises to position the city as a hub for artificial intelligence innovation. Meanwhile, just across the Mississippi River, Google has confirmed plans for a multi-billion-dollar data center campus in West Memphis, Arkansas, marking one of the largest investments in the state's history. These projects are touted for creating jobs and boosting the local economy, but they come with significant environmental and social drawbacks. Farmers and residents in this agriculturally rich region, already grappling with water scarcity, now face intensified competition for essential resources. Data centers like these consume enormous amounts of water for cooling, strain electrical grids leading to higher utility bills, generate persistent noise pollution from backup generators, and contribute to air pollution that degrades quality of life. I argue that the unchecked expansion of xAI and Google's facilities will pit local communities against corporate behemoths in a battle for survival, particularly over water for drinking and irrigating crops. As At the heart of the issue is water consumption. Data centers rely on vast quantities of water to cool servers that generate immense heat during operations. Globally, these facilities are exacerbating water stress in vulnerable areas with indirect usage, such as evaporative cooling, accounting for about 60% of their total water footprint. In Memphis, XAI's facility is projected to use up to 5 billion gallons of water per day at peak demand, drawing from the Memphis Sand Aquifer, a critical resource that supplies pristine water to millions in Tennessee and surrounding states. This aquifer is already under pressure with historical interstate disputes such as Mississippi's lawsuit against Memphis over excessive pumping, highlighting its fragility. The Mid-South's agricultural sector, which depends on this water for irrigating crops like cotton, soybeans, and rice, faces direct competition. Rapidly diminishing supplies have plagued the region, forcing farmers to confront tough choices about crop viability and growing urban and industrial demand. Google's West Memphis campus, while still in planning, will likely employ water-based cooling systems powered by the same aquifer, further straining resources. In water-stressed communities, data centers' thirst can lead to ethical dilemmas, prioritizing corporate computing over human needs and agricultural sustainability. Residents may see reduced access to affordable drinking water, while farmers risk lower yields or fallowing fields, threatening food security and local economies. Compounding the water crisis is the surge in electrical consumption, which not only strains the grid, but also hikes utility bills for everyday users. XAI's Memphis site demands up to 300 megawatts of power, enough to energize 200,000 homes, prompting the Tennessee Valley Authority to approve additional capacity despite public outcry. Google's facility will partner with Entergy to cover its energy needs, but such arrangements often shift infrastructure costs onto ratepayers. Nationally, data centers are driving up electricity prices as they disrupt supply-demand balances, leading to higher wholesale rates and demand charges passed on to households. In regions like the Mid-South, where grids are aging and already burdened, this influx can cause blackouts or necessitate costly upgrades. For instance, utilities build new substations or transmission lines for data centers, spreading those expenses across all customers, resulting in bill increases even before facilities are fully operational. Farmers who rely on affordable electricity for irrigation pumps and machinery will feel this pinch acutely, potentially eroding profit margins in an industry with thin margins. Residents in Memphis and West Memphis, many in low-income areas, could see their monthly bills rise by significant percentages, exacerbating economic inequality. The AI boom's energy hunger is swamping U.S. grids, with data centers projected to slow the transition to renewables and perpetuate fossil fuel dependence. Noise pollution from these data centers adds another layer of disruption, turning once quiet neighborhoods into zones of constant hum and roar. Backup generators essential for uninterrupted power are a primary culprit. In Memphis, XII has installed unpermitted gas turbines that could double in number, emitting noise levels that can reach 85 to 96 decibels, enough to cause hearing damage with prolonged exposure. Monthly diesel generator tests produce audible hums up to 300 feet away, while cooling systems like air handling units and towers generate a persistent drone around 55 to 85 decibels, particularly noticeable in rural or suburban settings. For West Memphis residents near Google's campus, this could mean 24/7 noise from HVAC systems and generators, disrupting sleep, increasing stress, and lowering property values. Farmers working field adjacent to these sites may endure this cacophony, affecting concentration and livestock health, as animals are sensitive to chronic noise. Air pollution further compounds these woes, with data centers emitting pollutants that harm public health and the environment. XAI's gas turbines and diesel generators release nitrogen oxide, particularly matter and carbon dioxide, contributing to smog and respiratory issues in Memphis, a city already burdened by industrial pollution from nearby refineries. Big Tech's in-house data centers, including those of Google, underreport emissions by up to 660%, with backup systems spewing toxins during startups and tests. In Virginia, similar facilities have led to unchecked pollution from diesel exhaust, costing billions in health impact. For the Memphis area, this means worsening air quality, aggravating asthma and other conditions among residents and farm workers exposed to outdoor pollutants. Crop yields could suffer from acid rain or ozone damage, indirectly competing with data centers' resource demands. These cumulative impacts erode local quality of life, transforming vibrant communities into industrial shadows. Noise disrupts daily routines, air pollution threatens health, and rising bills strain budgets, while water competition jeopardizes drinking supplies and agriculture, the backbone of the Mid-South economy. Residents near XAI have voiced concerns about unpermitted operations and lack of transparency, echoing broader fears of corporate overreach. In West Memphis, Google's arrival, while economically promising, risks similar fallout, with locals already weary of grid upgrades and water draws. Biodiversity loss from habitat strain and ethical questions about prioritizing AI over human needs loom large. XAI and Google data centers in Memphis and West Memphis represent a stark trade-off: technological progress at the expense of local sustainability. Farmers and residents will increasingly compete for water essential for crops and hydration against corporate cooling needs while facing higher bills, noisy disturbances, polluted air, and diminished well-being. Policymakers must demand rigorous environmental assessments, renewable energy mandates, and community safeguards to prevent this imbalance. Without intervention, the Mid-South's future could be one of scarcity and strife, where bites triumph over basic needs. That is it for this episode. Thank you, Charles. He said I could call him Charlie over drinks. We're friends now. Thank you, Charles, for making politics fun and being effective in the swamp for Republican issues. Without guys like you up there, we'd be a lot worse off. And if you're right and Dems are coming back with Speaker Hakeem and Chuck in the Senate, it won't be pretty for populists. But like I say, gridlock is good. Better to do nothing than do bad things to us. This is goodbye for now. I'm your host, Steve Abramowitz, editor-in-chief of HeartlandJournal.com. Peace in our time, and who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. G to G.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is overglorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
Heartland Journal Podcast is the media property of heartlandjournal.com, where you can find news stories, commentary, and content serving the heartland of America. Any views or opinions represented on the podcast are personal and belong solely to the creator and do not represent those of the people, institutions, or organizations that the creator may or may not be associated with in professional or personal capacity unless explicitly stated.